From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet. We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you live from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 and around the world on the Internet with American Patriot Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio Network, AMFM247.com, and a whole bunch of others. And joining me today as my co-host, as she does on Wednesdays, or Tuesdays actually, is the Patriot from the Garden State of New Jersey. Yes, that's what they call it, the Garden State of New Jersey. But Anna Little. Anna, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Glad to be with you, Rick.
Great to have you with us. So, Anna, tonight is a big event in Washington, D.C. Tonight is the State of the Union message, Barack Obama's 8th and final, I do believe it. I don't know if he does one before he leaves office or not, but I think tonight may be his last State of the Union message.
That might be true. Let's see. Well, that may not be. I don't know. Because, you know, we swear in the new president around the 20th, don't we?
Yes, we do. So does the new president...
Sure what happens next year. We'll find out.
Yeah, does the new president do the State of the Union or the old president? The incoming president or the outcoming?
Might be the old one giving the State of the Union, the new incoming president giving his plans for going forward. But I'm not sure. We'll double check that.
All right. Well, Anna, there's a couple of things I wanted to talk with you about the State of the Union message. Number one, I wanted to get your opinion as to, does it make a difference if the president gives a State of the Union message or not? What good does it do?
Well, I think when the president has the cooperation of at least one house of the legislature and a near majority, if not a majority in the other, the State of the Union address is pretty much an agenda. Mm-hmm. But when the executive branch is separated so strongly from the other two, from the two houses of the legislature, the way that it is right now, I'm not sure what difference it makes other than to give a warning shot relative to what his executive orders might be. I mean, remember, he does not have a majority that will work with him in either the House of Representatives or the Senate. His spokesperson, Josh Ernst, I think it is, ignores that. They go on with their agenda as if nothing has happened with regard to the election in these two houses of the legislature, and it's the awful Republicans that are in their way, and their agenda is fine. Well, the American people have rejected their agenda twice now by changing the majority in both the House and the Senate. Mm-hmm. And other than presidential turnout, I'm not sure the American people were 100% with Barack Obama. You know, there are people who vote only in presidential elections and do not pay attention. And those votes come out in the presidential but don't come out in the rest of the year. So it's quite possible that that's what kept him in office. I mean, certainly we can leave that to the pundits who are, you know, have access to better data than I on that. But I'm not sure that this State of the Union address is anything more than a foreshadowing of what we're going to deal with on by way of executive orders going forward this year.
Well, Anna, I have two very interesting lists in front of me. One I have shared with you, the other I haven't. The one I've shared with you is a list of 18 VIPs in the audience for the State of the Union message. And the other is past promises Barack Obama has made in his State of the Union message. Since he's been inaugurated into office 7 years ago, he has made at least 140 promises to the American people that he hasn't kept. So I'm going to leave it up to you. What list do you think we should take on?
Just pick one. Let's go forward.
Well, let's pick on both.
Okay. All right. You go ahead.
All right. Well, first, each and every year at the State of the Union address, Barack Obama loves to point up into the gallery and point out some American that he feels exemplifies what America is all about, right? And so, therefore, members of Congress invite someone, usually one of their constituents, to the State of the Union message to sit up in the gallery during that event. And I find this list very, very interesting, the different types of people that are on this list. And you can almost, in my opinion, you can almost go by their name or what they do as to who invited them. What member of the House invited them, either a Democrat or a Republican? Okay? So, how about, Anna, if you play this little game with me, and I'll read off some of the names or what these people do. And you tell me if you think that person was invited by a Democrat or a Republican. How about that?
I will do my best.
All right. First one. Robert Carrett, who's the Chancellor of the University System of Maryland. Do you think that Mr. Carrett was invited by a Democrat or a Republican?
I believe he is invited by a Democrat.
Bingo! You are right. You are right. Senator Ben Cardin invited him to the State of the Union message, and aiming to promote college affordability, he was invited, the newly hired Chancellor of the University System of Maryland. All right, now here we have another one. We have Cheryl Bennett. She is the mother of a former Navy SEAL killed in the Benghazi attacks. Anna Little, do you think that Cheryl Bennett was invited by the State of the Union, or to the State of the Union, by a Democrat or a Republican?
By a Republican, Rick.
Bingo, right again, Anna. She was invited by somebody who has been a guest here, Representative Mike Pompeo, a Republican from Kansas. So, we will continue. Another invitee to Barack Obama's State of the Union address, Everett Piper, president of the Oklahoma Wesleyan University. Do you think that Everett Piper was invited by a Democrat or a Republican?
I would say likely a Democrat because he's an academic.
Well, and this is a switch. He was actually invited by a Republican, James Lankford, a Republican of Oklahoma. And Piper went viral in a blog post earlier this year when he chastised college students for being too sensitive to other points of view.
Well, that is a Republican issue on the agenda, so it makes sense that he was invited by a Republican.
Yes. Here's another one. Tony DiGiacomo, a Marine veteran. This man, DiGiacomo, works as a coordinator of veteran casework and outreach. Do you think a Marine would be invited by a Democrat or a Republican?
Republican.
Absolutely. Representative Mike Kelly from Pennsylvania. Okay, and then we have actually three people. Deborah, Diane, and Vincent Bonacasa, a family of sergeant killed in Afghanistan. Do you think that this family, the sergeant killed in Afghanistan, was invited by a Republican or a Democrat?
By a Republican.
That's right. Lee Zeilid from New York, a Republican, invited the family. Oh, let's see here. Okay. And this name is going to stump me a little bit, Anna, so bear with me. Mashin Jaffer, a Muslim American doctor, do you think was invited by a Republican or a Democrat?
Democrat.
Right. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, in fact, the head of the chairman of the Democratic National Committee, will bring Jaffer, a Muslim American physician, as her guest. Okay, let me see. Another one, all right. Oh boy, here we go. This name is going to be difficult for me to pronounce. Abduram Kahin, an immigrant and entrepreneur. And I'll spell this name because I'm sure I'm butchering it. Abdirahman. Last name is Kahin. He's an immigrant entrepreneur. And do you think he was invited by a Democrat or a Republican?
Democrat.
Right again, Al Franken. Al Franken, Democrat senator from Minnesota. All right, let's see. What others do we have? Okay, we have Connor McFarlane, an Eagle Scout. Do you think Connor McFarlane, who is an Eagle Scout, would be invited to the President's State of the Union address by a Republican or a Democrat?
A Republican.
Right. Senator Marco Rubio invited him. How about Alicia Garza, who is the co-founder of the Black Lives Matter movement? Do you think that Alicia was invited by a Democrat or a Republican to Barack Obama's State of the Union address?
I believe it was a Democrat.
You're right again. Barbara Lee, who is a Democrat representative for California, invited Garza, who founded the Black Lives Movement. Oh, here's another. Actually, it's a state trooper. Alex Douglas. And do you think that a state trooper would be invited to the State of the Union address by a Republican or a Democrat?
Well, that's a tough one because I think the Republicans are pro-law.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about Trooper Douglas. Douglas was severely wounded and his partner killed when they were ambushed by a rifleman in 2014. Douglas rushed through physical therapy before finishing the Boston Marathon last year. Do you think he would be invited by a Republican or a Democrat?
I think a Republican.
Well, you're right again. Pat Toomey, Senator Pat Toomey invited him to the State of the Union address. So I just think, and it's amusing that just by going down this list of the kinds of people who were invited to the State of the Union address, that you could pick out who invited them, a Democrat or Republican. Doesn't that tell you what's important to America and what's important, where the members of Congress place their importance as far as our country go?
Well, I think they have certain agendas, and I think what we find with the Republicans is that they're very pro-law enforcement, very pro-military, pro-defense, national defense. So I think that's part of the Republican agenda. It should be everybody's agenda, but sadly it is not. And on the Democratic side, I think they have been racially divisive, and therefore, if you're identifying people as attendees based on their religion or the color of their skin or the organization that is representing a certain demographic, which is identified by the color of the skin, well, then that's probably on the Democrat side. It's sad that we have to make the distinctions that way.
It is. Well, there is another gentleman who is invited to be a guest of a member of Congress to the President's State of the Union address, and I would like to talk about this individual. And that is our own Kenneth McClinton, who is a co-host here on the Conservative Commandos radio show. He shares the airwaves with me on Friday afternoon. And as our listeners may know, that this past summer, Ken's daughter, his 27-year-old daughter, who was a writer for a local newspaper in Washington, D.C., was coming home from an assignment. She was waiting for a bus. She was at a bus stop. There was another individual there at the bus stop at the same time, a man. And somebody drove up on a motorcycle, got into an argument, an altercation with the man that was standing at this bus stop. The individual on the motorcycle pulled out a gun. The individual standing at the bus stop used Ken's daughter as a human shield. The idiot on the motorcycle shot Ken's daughter, killing her. Well, Ken has been invited tonight to the State of the Union address. Ken's idea is Ken is a Second Amendment person. He feels that his daughter was killed because of what goes on in gun-free zones. Who has guns in gun-free zones? But criminals do. Criminals aren't afraid to use guns in gun-free zones because they know that they're the only ones that are armed. So I just wanted to let you know that our very good friend and colleague, Ken McClinton, will be a guest tonight at the State of the Union address. And we're not going to take a break because we went a little bit long on the last segment. However, let's just jump into our guest for today. Would you like to do that?
I think that would be an excellent idea. In the first segment, I get to speak with Jason Jimenez. He's the co-founder of Stand Strong Ministries. He's a pastor, apologist, and national speaker who has ministered to families for over 15 years. And is in his extensive ministry career, Jason has been a children's, student, and college pastor and has spent a great deal of time investing in marriages, families, and helping churches to have a greater impact in their communities. Jason is the author of The Raging War of Ideas, How to Take Back Our Faith, Family, and Country, The Raging War of Ideas Study Guide, and co-authored with Dr. Norman Geisler, the official study guide to I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, and the Bible's Answers to 100 of Life's Biggest Questions, published by Baker Books. Jason also co-hosts Viral Truth with Alex McFarland, a TV show which reaches millions of homes each week on the NRB network, and they travel together with their Stand Strong tours. He's going to talk to us about the Philadelphia shooting and how it underscores the importance of ending Islamic threats in America. Our second guest is going to be Kimberly Corbin, and you may have heard of Kimberly Corbin because she actually addressed or questioned Barack Obama during his town hall meeting about gun control while on CNN. She's actually a rape victim. She was a 20-year-old student completing her sophomore year at the University of Northern Colorado. She had just finished finals, and summer was on its way. She had her whole life ahead of her, and then the unthinkable happened. She's going to join us to talk about her pro-gun stance in light of her survival of rape. So that's a very important one, our second guest. And then our third guest is familiar to us as he's a conservative commando, J.D. Gordon. He's also former Pentagon spokesman who served under both Secretary Donald Rumsfeld and Secretary Robert Gates and is a retired Navy commander. And since leaving the Defense Department, Gordon has served as a senior fellow and communications policy advisor to numerous think tanks, foundations, and national political figures, including former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin and former presidential candidate Mr. Herman Cain. J.D. Gordon, a contributing columnist to Fox News and the Washington Times since 2010, has regularly appeared as a national security and foreign policy commentator on a wide variety of international, national, and local Washington, D.C. television and radio outlets in English and in Spanish languages. And he's joining us today to talk about his article, which is entitled, Obama Cries Over Guns and Then Frees More Terrorists.
All right, so we do have a great show lined up for our listeners, and I really want to thank Kimberly Corbin for joining us today, a very courageous young woman, and courageous in many ways. One way is standing up to Barack Obama and questioning him about his ideas on gun controls. So we're really looking forward to having Kimberly join us today. And with a few minutes left, what I'd like to do, and we only have about 3 minutes left before we have to take our next break, I'd like to run down a list of some of the promises that Barack Obama made last year at his State of the Union address. I think that would be fun. All right?
Okay.
As a promise, last year, Barack Obama promised that he would convert sunlight into liquid fuel. He promised to create revolutionary prosthetics so that disabled veterans can play catch with their kids. He promised to colonize space. He promised to close loopholes that reward companies for creating jobs abroad, then reward them for creating jobs in America. Using savings, he promised using savings from closed loopholes to rebuild infrastructure, lower taxes, simplify the tax code so small business owners pay based upon, quote, what's in their bank account instead of the number of accounts that they can afford. Close loopholes that lets people avoid paying taxes. Use money from those closed loopholes to send kids to college, to pay for health care, to give 2 years of free college to students, to destroy ISIS, to prevent foreign nations' hackers from stealing data, from accessing our networks and stealing trade secrets and invading our privacy. He promised to close Gitmo, and he promised to enact criminal justice reform. Here's the one that really cracks me up, a promise that Barack Obama made during his State of the Union address last year. He promised to seek out Republican ideas to make America strong. So anyway, I wonder what he's going to promise this year.
I'm not sure he can follow through on very much of it if he doesn't get some kind of working relationship with the Congress. And pointing out that Republicans are the bad guys through his spokesperson on a regular basis is not moving toward a working relationship with Congress. Remember, Congress is elected by the people, and this president is supposed to be serving the people. And when he insults Republicans, he insults the people who put them in charge.
All right, and with that, what we are going to do is we are going to take a break. And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Anna Little and Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network, WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia, and around the world on the internet with CPR Worldwide Media. Where's my list? I lost my list. Here it is. Around the world with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio Network, AM/FM 24/7. Today's show is brought to you by the First Amendment, protected by the Second. Ann and I will be right back with our first guest.
I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but You've heard
heard Paul Delks playing the music on the Your Music Matters morning show. He is also an experienced mortgage loan officer working for U.S. Mortgage Corporation and assists homeowners navigate the reverse mortgage process. If you are finding yourself asking questions whether or not you set aside enough for retirement, Paul can sit down with you, your family, and your financial advisor and discuss how a reverse mortgage may be a valuable resource for your retirement plan. You will be responsible for paying your taxes and insurance, and the reverse mortgage can help with this and other expenses, such as home health care or other untimely bills. Put Paul's 20-plus years of experience to work for you, as choosing the right option for your situation can be critical. Call Paul at U.S. Mortgage Corporation at 877-213-9977. That's 877-213-9977. Or go to seniormatters.info for more information. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is a licensed mortgage banker in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and an equal housing lender. NMLS number 3901. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is located at 201 Old Country Road, Suite 140, Melville, New York, 11747. This advertisement applies to first lien mortgages. Paul E. Dilks, NMLS is 485904.
Hi, this is Bob Biden, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired as I am about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard. From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
listeners, welcome back to Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Rick Trader and Anna Little. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, CCRS Network, and ccrshow.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com. 1 p.m., warradio.net. And 9 p.m., highplainsdailynews.com. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. Our first guest is with us, and the honor of the introduction is mine. Jason Jimenez is the co-founder of Stand Strong Ministries. He's a pastor, apologist, and national speaker who has ministered to families for over 15 years. In his extensive ministry career, Jason has been a children's, student, and college pastor and has spent a great deal of time investing in marriages, families, and helping churches have a greater impact in their communities. Jason is the author of The Raging War of Ideas, How to Take Back Our Faith, Family, and Country, The Raging War of Ideas Study Guide, and he's co-authored with Dr. Norman Geisler the official study guide of I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, and the Bible's answers to 100 of life's biggest questions, which were published by Baker Books. Jason also co-hosts Viral Truth with Alex McFarland, a TV show which reaches millions of homes each week on the NRB network, and they travel together with their Stand Strong tours. Jason Jimenez, welcome to Conservative Commandos Radio Show.
Well, it's great to be with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for joining us, and I'm really glad you're going to talk about this topic. We've got this article entitled Philadelphia Shooting Underscores Importance of Ending Islamic Threats in America. We actually had a police officer ambushed and shot 3 times by someone who claimed they did it in the name of Islam. Talk to me about this.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's sadly that he just, again, after all these constant attacks that we're seeing that's taking place, not just around the world, but we're actually seeing them at our own home front. And this one hits home on many accounts. One, because we have another shooting, and here Obama just comes out and he's talking about more gun control. But as you and I both know, and many of your viewers listening, any of the policies which are unconstitutional that he's trying to enforce would do nothing to prevent this type of attacks. And the other thing is this is done in the name of Islam, as you just stated, and has all the markings of an ISIS strategy, and it was targeted against a police officer who was doing his job, patrolling the streets of Philly, keeping people safe, and yet he was shot at for 13 times, and it was by an individual who they're stating, one, has mental problems, who has allegiance to Islam, who carries out an attack that has the markings of ISIS, and it was done by a gun that was stolen like 3 years prior from an officer. And so this is, thank God the officer's okay, but this type of attack is in fact a terrorist attack against police officers, okay? And the chief who stood out there and said that we're not calling it a terrorist attack, and he said this is not in the name of Islam. And I would have to say to them, I know they're defending their officer, and they should, and they need to be doing that, and we're praying for full recovery for HeartNet. But I think our officers and people in America need to realize what this truly is. This isn't just a random gun violence, that this is a terrorist attack, okay? And these are scary. And I think the more that we speak to these things and address them for what they really are, the better informed Americans will be, and our law enforcement, so they can take better action against these type of attacks.
I wanted you to speak a little bit, Jason, to the notion that we are a country of freedoms, and one of those freedoms is religious freedom. And we define religion, although I think it's rather loosely defined, and we talk about not wanting to profile people. So all of this goes to the question of whether we can start identifying these terrorist acts with Islam, or whether we need to look at them as isolated events. If the perpetrator is saying that they're following Allah and doing things in the name of Islam, can we not then say that we need to investigate what the tenets are in Islam that might give rise to this, or ask the Islamic community to denounce the act? What are your thoughts about that?
I think it's a great question, and I think, yes, in response to that, when we look at this thing, again, we want to look at it objectively. Obviously, there's a lot of passion riding on this, and a lot of people want to be politically correct about this whole thing. And as you stated, rightly so, people try to say, let's stay away from being stereotypical or profiling the whole thing. Look, investigators and law enforcement need to do their job. In this case, the suspect, 30-year-old man, this guy who attacked the officer, said that he did this in the name of Islam, that he was doing this for ISIS. And the reason for that, after he was apprehended by police officers, was that he stated that it was an attack against American law. Okay? Now, if you and I had more time, we can explore what that means under the Hadith and what this guy is referring to when it comes to the Sharia law. But yes, in a sense, it was an attack not against just an officer personally, but it was an attack against what officers symbolize as enforcers of American law. And that is a deeper issue. So this has nothing to do with profiling. This has everything to do. And yes, the suspect admitted his intentions, why he did what he did. You and I know in a court of law, you're looking for the intent. Beyond a reasonable doubt, what was the motive? The motive here was the guy decided to attack an officer with a stolen officer's gun in the heat of the night. He was captured on camera, as you and I know. Millions of people have seen that horrific incident. But an officer's life was put on the line because this guy said he was doing it in the name of Allah. He said that. And he said he did it because he was going against the law. That is a terrorist attack. That is a threat against not only the officer who was patrolling the streets of Philly, but all Americans. And that's what people need to understand. So, as you go back to your initial thing, this isn't necessarily a faith issue. Yes, as Americans, we are all about religious freedom. And I certainly am one that I don't endorse the Muslim faith, but I certainly, as an American under the Constitution, feel that they have the freedom of expression. But if that expression takes a literal interpretation of their teachings from the Quran and the Hadith to undermine and usurp and attack laws other than their law, that is a threat against our very civilization. So this is not about faith. This is about an ideology that runs contrary to our freedoms under the Constitution.
Very, very interesting analysis, and I do think we should call upon the leaders of the Islamic religion here in the United States to denounce these violent acts, because they're going to continue unless somebody with some kind of clout within Islamic religion asks that they stop, because they're obviously painting Islam in a certain light as well. We can certainly debate whether Islam is a violent religion. There are people who practice it peacefully. We can go into that probably in another show. But you've got 10 myths here, and I want to start them because we only have about a minute before we have to go to a break. But I think we need to dispel the myths, and I'm really glad that you and Dr. McFarland have gone forward to list them. The first one is that Christianity is intolerant and judgmental toward others. Talk to us about that and tell us the truth.
Well, yeah, the truth is that anytime somebody comes out and they say that we need to be tolerant, they're probably being intolerant of a position that they don't agree with. And the reality is that people label Christians as the most intolerant. But the fact is that truth is narrow-minded, meaning 2 + 2 = 4 or 3 + 3 = 6. That is not intolerant. That's being narrow-minded, meaning that there's only one answer to that. And so spiritual quest and spiritual truths are foundational for not just in this life and as we practice it, but also for all eternity. So if we're looking at factual claims, spiritual claims are that much more important. And so the idea of people saying that Christians are the most intolerant is obviously in and of itself is an intolerant claim. And so we got to be careful that we're not going around just calling everybody intolerant. We got to realize that there is a liberal progressive movement. And a lot of this is guised under religious pluralism. They try to make it sound like all religions are one, but that's actually a very intolerant and bigoted position, because you're putting Christians and Jews and Muslims all in the same, worshiper of the same God and ultimately leading the same path, when all three of those religions respectfully would disagree with that claim. So what we say in our material, in our books, and what we're trying to express publicly through media and other channels, is that when people are making a claim that Christians are intolerant, they themselves are making an intolerant statement. No one gets anywhere with that. And when we would say that Christians are not making intolerant claims, they're making truth claims, and people have to objectively study them for themselves to see if they're viable enough to follow.
And with that, I'm going to take us to break. Can you hold on for just 2 minutes while we identify the station? We've got 9 more myths to dispel when you come back.
Sure, I'll be here.
Thank you, Jason. We are speaking with Jason Jimenez, and he's the co-founder of Stand Strong Ministries. We are coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, a flagship station in Philadelphia and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio, and AM/FM 24/7. Those are all .coms. I'm Anna Little. Our producer, Rick Trader, is with us, and we're speaking with Jason Jimenez. We'll be right back with you after this break.
I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the Internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Viden, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittlesportshop.com.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Rick Trader and Anna Little. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, CCRS Network, and ccrshow.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com. 1 p.m., roarradio.net, and 9 p.m., highplainsdailynews.com. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. We are speaking this segment with Jason Jimenez, co-founder of Stand Strong Ministries. And he's talking to us about the Philadelphia shooting and how it underscores the importance of ending Islamic threats in America. Jason, thank you so much for hanging on through that break. We do appreciate your time.
Absolutely, Anna. I'm enjoying the conversation with you.
Well, I've been enjoying talking about these myths about Christianity because we do get a bad rap from the media, and I think the general public doesn't really understand us unless they are lovers of Christ themselves. So let's talk about myth number 2 here, that Christianity can't be true because there is evil and suffering in our world. Talk to me about that one.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, can't really do justice with the time frame that we have, but very shortly, and again, with all sincerity, I mean, we all have gone through pain and suffering in life. I mean, life is filled with pain and suffering, but as a Christian, we are comforted by God. We believe that there is a real God who loves us, and He sent His Son, Jesus Christ, who paid the ultimate price, right? He went through the most suffering for us, so we can be bridged or reconciled to God. But in these myths, so a lot of times people say, look, there is evil and suffering, and there's no denying that. There are some religions who would deny reality of evil and suffering. We don't. We accept the reality that we live in a fallen world, and there's a lot of bad and evil things that are taking place. As we were just mentioning, an officer who just patrolling, doing his job to protect the people of Philly, and a sick, twisted individual in the name of Allah comes and shoots 13 bullets to try to kill him in cold blood. And that's evil. It's an evil act. But that doesn't deny the fact that God exists. So the point, Anna, is for people to understand is that we don't deny evil and suffering. We admit that it's there, and we all go through it. But we do say that as a Christian, that ultimately what we believe, that God will restore all things, that God can work things for the better, for the good, and that when we suffer, that we surround each other. The Bible teaches us in 1 Corinthians 12 that when one little member suffers, we all suffer. That's the teachings of the Christian faith, that we have a Savior that we worship and that we admire and that we look to, that came, that was tempted in all ways yet without sin. So rather than the atheist admitting that there's evil and suffering, but not saying that there's an ultimate standard in which they're able to differentiate between which is right and good and bad, we as a Christian say that we know there's such a thing as evil because there's such a thing as good. And we base it on that ultimate standard. And we do know, hopefully, that God will restore things one day. That's the hope that we have. The atheist says we suffer, we go through all these horrific things, and then we die and we cease to exist. We say there is evil and suffering. God will restore these things. He never intended these things to take place in the beginning, but He'll see us through it. And ultimately, in the name of Jesus, we will live in eternity with Him without pain and suffering. So these myths that go on about that doesn't deny the claims of Christianity. Matter of fact, I think they affirm it.
Well, thank God for that. Now, I want to combine these next 2 myths because I think they kind of run together, and I want you to speak to both of them. Myth number 3, Christianity is untrue because it is based on faith instead of facts. And myth number 4, which says Christianity has been disproven by modern science. Talk to us about those 2, facts and science.
Yeah, I mean, truth be told, Anna, I think what people need to realize when they make those type of claims is that they haven't really studied Christianity and history. Christianity has some of the most smartest thinkers and scientists, and so what we would say is that faith and reason are not 2 things that don't go together. They're not 2 separate things. We would put them together and say that we have a reasonable faith, because Christianity, for sure, when people study it objectively and they look at it, is it tests itself. It says we are open for scrutiny. From the very beginning, we know God through the knowledge that He's given us, and that He says, come now, let us reason together. We are to love God with not just our heart and our bodies, but also with our minds. We are always to give a defense or an answer to those who ask. So we see that Christianity is reasonable faith. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 15 that if the resurrection never occurred, that our faith is futile, it's pointless, it's empty, it's worth nothing. That is a claim, that is a challenge that he's putting out. If you don't, he says, believe me, there's other eyewitnesses that you can go ask. Luke lays out his gospel of Jesus Christ to Theophilus, and he carefully articulates out that he's about to give, not just in the gospel, but in the book of Acts. So to say that Christianity is an unreasonable thing, that it's just a faith thing, not a reasonable thing, people don't really understand Christianity then, and plus all of the historical things that we see that took place with the church. So when you get into this other myth that people are saying that scientifically it's been disclaimed, has been refuted. Look, science is not the measure of all things. It's not the absolute standard of everything. And so that right there is a misnomer there. What we're saying is, and what, in this scientific debate, is that you look at the Bible is not a science textbook, right? Every science textbook that you and I have ever read, there's errors in it. But the Bible, whatever it teaches on science, is true, okay? And so consistently, when we take the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, we see that it bears truth, the anthropic principle, the principle of causality, a lot of these fundamental first principle things that science uses on a daily basis that you cannot undermine or disregard because they're first principles. We see that the Bible, thousands of years prior, has taught those truths because it's true. So a lot of times when people are trying to make these claims, it's unreasonable, it's unscientific, therefore Christianity is not true. Those are myths. It's in fact reasonable and bears true with science. We just encourage people in these discussions, whether it be college campuses or people on the left or, tried Christianity, didn't work for me, is understanding why they're making these claims. A lot of times through YouTube or an atheist professor or Richard Dawkins, they're just regurgitating stuff that they've been told. And then we just, again, gently and apologetically just show them the truth.
Well, I think that's very important because, today's world has gotten far away from those values which we would consider wholesome and healthy and which go back to families and monogamous relationships and the living example of what was taught to us by Christ through his life and then in the Bible as recorded by his followers. So I think we do need to go through this, and your work is very, very important. I want to skip forward a little bit. I want to start with myth number 8 here because it does reference the Bible and kind of picks up where you're leaving off here.
Right.
The myth number 8 says that Christianity is false because it's based on the Bible, which is filled with errors and contradictions. I want you to speak to that. While you do so, see if you can't move forward into myth number 9, saying that Christianity can't be true because it's based on a dead man coming back to life. And myth number 10, that Christianity isn't real because a loving God wouldn't send anyone to hell. I think you can do that. I know it's a lot.
Yeah. Well, and I'll try. I hope I don't disappoint you and your viewers. But I think, let's take those 3 myths, okay? Like you said, people try to discredit Christianity because they believe that the Bible's filled with a bunch of contradictions or errors, okay? All the way up to the point of, this they call it cosmic rape, as Richard Dawkins does in his God delusion, that you guys worship this God that just sends people to hell if they don't worship him or follow him the way, that he says in his holy book that he's supposed to be followed. And then connection, like you said, with the other myth that we talk about, is that Christianity isn't true because of the resurrection. People don't rise from the dead. And then this is something that's been going down through the years. Listen, when you look at the Bible, when people say there's contradictions or errors, what people fail to understand is that we, believe in something that's called inspiration, or that the Bible is infallible and it's without error, okay? It can't be broken. We see that in John 10:35, Jesus himself said that if there is a God, and Jesus who came and fulfilled prophecy and lived a sinless life, and he did die, and he was buried, and he has risen from the dead on the 3rd day, and there's eyewitness to that. And you factor in the meticulous care that many of the copyist people from the Masoretes, okay, even to our current state that we have translations today, you see great detail and care. When you look at a lot of the councils in life, we can't get into it, but one in particular, the Council of Chalcedon, when you look at these councils and what the church fathers did in ensuring that what they were affirming, okay, not determining, but affirming to be what we would call the canonicity, the measuring rod of what qualified to be books that were inspired and brought in by prophets and apostles of God that spoke and were messengers of God. The Bible is beautiful. When you look at the internal test and external test and the bibliographical test, what that means is when you study what the Bible teaches of itself internally and you look at extra biblical sources outside of the Bible, and then you test the manuscripts and the consistency of it through time, the Bible is like no other particular book. That's why it's unique and it's consistent. The other thing is, when you look at the claims of the resurrection, you look at the evidence of it, it is amazing to see the consistency that we have, that there was, in fact, a record of Jesus' death. There was a burial. There's no denying that. Both liberal and conservative scholars. There were significant appearances of Jesus Christ. There was extraordinary conversions that took place, and there was this new message called Christianity that came out of Judaism. When you look at those type of things, there's beyond a reasonable doubt that Jesus Christ rose from the dead. And the final thing is, in all this stuff when you're talking about, if Jesus is the Son of God, and he rose from the dead, and he gives us life, and we know there's right and wrong, and there's pain and suffering, you cannot just have a heaven We do not, as Christians, believe in universalism, that ultimately all these people, the Adolf Hitlers of the world, the Saddam Husseins of the world, the rapists of the world, the sadomasochists of the world, the ISIS people of the world, all get to heaven in the end. And ultimately, it's whether it was God or of the Bible, the Old Testament, or Jesus or Allah. No. Ultimately, there is a heaven and hell, and people need to decide whether they're going to follow the teachings of Jesus Christ, who proved that he was God in the flesh, he was the God-man, that he rose from the dead, and that he offers people eternal life. They turn from their wicked ways and accept him as Lord and Savior. We believe if people don't do that, the Bible says, if you have the Son, you have life. If you have not the Son, you do not have life. You will perish for all eternity. There is a heaven and there is a hell. God doesn't send people to hell. Remember, God doesn't desire
No, we send ourselves to hell by our behavior.
Exactly.
That's what it is, Jason. Jason Jimenez, Stand Strong Ministries. Remind our listeners where they can follow you.
They could check me and Alex out at standstrongministries.com.
Thank you so much for spending this time today with us on Conservative Commandos. Time flies when we're having fun. Come back and see us again soon.
Well, thank you, guys. God bless you guys.
God bless you. Listeners, we are coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio, and AM/FM 24/7. We are coming to you right after this break.
That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
You've heard Paul Dilks playing the music on the Your Music Matters morning show. He is also an experienced mortgage loan officer working for U.S. Mortgage Corporation and assists homeowners navigate the reverse mortgage process. If you are finding yourself asking questions whether or not you set aside enough for retirement, Paul can sit down with you, your family, and your financial advisor and discuss how a reverse mortgage may be a valuable resource for your retirement plan. You will be responsible for paying your taxes and insurance, and the reverse mortgage can help with this and other expenses, such as home health care or other untimely bills. Put Paul's 20-plus years of experience to work for you, as choosing the right option for your situation can be critical. Call Paul at U.S. Mortgage Corporation at 877-213-9977. That's 877-213-9977. Or go to seniormatters.info for more information. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is a licensed mortgage banker in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and an equal housing lender. NMLS number 3901. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is located at 201 Old Country Road, Suite 140, Melville, New York, 11747. This advertisement applies to first lien mortgages. Paul E. Dilks, NMLS is 485904.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard. From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. Drink my wine. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Trader and Anna Little. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, CCRS Network and CCRShow.com, or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to LeadingEdgeRadioNetwork.com, 1 p.m., VoreRadio.net, and 9 p.m., HighPlainsDailyNews.com. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. Our next guest is with us. Kimberly Corbin is a guest on Conservative Commandos today to talk to us about her questioning of Barack Obama during his town hall meeting about gun control on CNN. Kimberly is a mother of two, and she has survived a brutal rape and is still in favor of gun ownership and against gun control. So she's a pro-gun rape survivor, and we are honored to have her join us for the very first time here on Conservative Commandos radio show. Welcome, Kimberly.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on.
Well, I want to say first that I admire you. You have the strength of I don't know how many people woven into a very small frame. And, you know, you are just an inspiration to me, and I know that you're an inspiration to my producer, Rick Trader, who's running the boards, and probably to many, many other folks. So please know that and be warmed by that, and we're honored to have you here on the show today.
Well, thank you so much.
And I also admire you for your strength in standing up to this president who threatens to control gun ownership by executive order, which I believe is improper procedure and will likely be successfully challenged in the Supreme Court. But you had the strength to stand up and tell your story to him. Why don't you go ahead and tell us about your experience?
Sure thing. Well, I had my apartment broken into by a stranger in 2006. I was held there for 2 hours and sexually assaulted. I reported everything right away. He was captured 3 weeks later. It did turn out that he was just another student here in town, 4.0 criminal justice major, actually. They caught him. He was successfully prosecuted by the Weld County District Attorney's Office. And I was thinking, as trial is nearing, where I testified for 3 hours, why did this have to happen to me? And the conclusion that I came to was that if I can help one other person not have to go through what I did, this would all be worth it. So I decided to release my name to the and started sharing my story, speaking to different colleges and high schools and groups across the nation, actually. And it's just kind of taken off from there. It's not necessarily for people to remember my name, and it's not for them to remember my face. It's to remember my story and what happens when our law enforcement communities can work together. So I did have a positive outcome from my assault, but there's so many that don't. So when I got up and had the opportunity to ask this of the president, I knew that I wasn't just asking on behalf of myself, on behalf of my little 2 kiddos. It was on behalf of all of these women who haven't found their voices yet. So many people spoke up on my behalf as I was finding mine, and I just am happy to do the same for them.
Well, I have to say, you're an inspiration. I admire you. So many women have trouble coming forward in the first place to report their rape, and then to follow through with the litigation that results in the conviction, to be able to testify for the length of time that you did. That in and of itself, I admire and I find inspirational. But then to be able to go on and work recounting your story so many times so that you can make your policy or have influence on policy, make your policy recommendations given your experience, and to stand up and do so in front of the president. What was that like for you?
You know, to me, I was just asking a question of a person whose vote counts exactly the same as mine in this country, or it should.
And sister.
Yes, that is exactly what we need to look at here. It wasn't, like, I absolutely respect the office of the president, and I think it is an amazing thing that our country can do this, but at the same time, he's just another person. And quite honestly, as I'm sitting there asking him this question, and he responds in the way that he did, I'm thinking, he wasn't there. He wasn't there when I was diagnosed with PTSD and depression as a direct result of this assault. He wasn't there with my parents when I'm unconscious on my bathroom floor having a seizure while they're trying to wake me up, again, reliving the assault. He wasn't there while I had to cry through testimony in the most detailed account of what this assault was like to 13 jurors that were complete strangers in an entire courtroom full of people. He wasn't there as I battled back, and he wasn't there when I really gathered the strength to do this. So for him to kind of dismiss it and say that he's not making it harder for me to buy a gun, I'm going to have to call that it's kind of hoarse. So, I mean, I have the mental health background now that would, under his executive actions or where they're going, would make it impossible for me to purchase a firearm or carry that. How many other survivors out there aren't going to seek the support that they so desperately need, because so many of us go through very, very like manifestations from these assaults, if they think that they aren't going to be able to have a firearm?
When the president says to you, and I'm reading from the quotes here, all I'm focused on is making sure that a terrible crime like yours that was committed is not made easier because somebody can go on the internet and just buy whatever weapon they want without us finding out whether they're a criminal or not. What do you say to that?
Where is this website? I'm having a tough time understanding where this is, but yeah, you know, I'm trying to do the same thing. I'm trying to make sure that this kind of crime doesn't happen again to me and my kids. Is he going to be there with his Secret Service to protect us every bit of the day? Because I can tell you, I left that CNN town hall and had to walk back out into the dark street, not with security detail, not with my weapon because I had to fly from Colorado. I had nothing to go on, and he can behind all of these armed guards while I am just going to go back and be another U.S. citizen. Don't take my rights away just because you can still maintain yours.
Yeah, that's an interesting comparison. The President of the United States walks the streets with Secret Service protection who are armed guards, so he doesn't have to carry a weapon. You and I don't have that luxury, and the police cannot be everywhere. I respect law enforcement. I'm sure you do, too. But they were not in your apartment when you needed them. And there was no physical way for them to anticipate that they were needed in that place at that time. You know, you had to be able to protect yourself. And thank God you had the strength to get through that ordeal and be here today, but not everybody does. There are folks that don't come back from that. And had they had a weapon and known how to use it, perhaps whether they would have killed the perpetrator or wounded the perpetrator, they themselves would not be as injured as they are today. Am I right or am I wrong?
Oh, absolutely. And the scary part about this is we aren't just this minority, you know, scared, huddled in our house kind of person that you can just pander your votes to. 1 in 4 women, and these are statistics that you can check on the RAIN website, FBI national statistics. It varies between 1 in 4 and 1 in 6 women at some point in their lifetime will be a victim of sexual assault, and it's 1 in 17 men. So here's this huge population of the country, many of which choose not to report their assaults just because of the victim shaming and the terrible fear that comes along with having to speak about this kind of intimate crime. And so we have all of these people that may or may not be seeking support services. But the thing is, we've had so much discussion about sex assault and how we need to arm ourselves. We aren't focusing on why. Why do I feel the need to arm myself? Well, that's because I know that rape happens, and I've seen it so long. And I was a victim advocate for the police department for almost 3 years. Now I work in the district attorney's office. I see this on a daily basis, and I'm not going to let myself be re-victimized again, especially when there's something that I can do about it.
Hang on to that thought. We've got a break for just 2 minutes. Please hold on, because we want to finish with you when we come back, okay?
Absolutely. Thanks.
Thank you so much. We are speaking with Kimberly Corbin, and we are coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, T98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio, and AM/FM 24/7. Those are all .com. Anna Little and Rick Trader will be right back with you, speaking with Kimberly Corbin after this break.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the Internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittlesportshop.com.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Rick Trader and Anna Little. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our websites, CCRS Network and CCRShow.com. Mornings at 9 a.m., log on to LeadingEdgeRadioNetwork.com. 1 p.m., RoarRadio.net. And 9 p.m., HighPlainsDailyNews.com. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. We are speaking this segment with Kimberly Corbin, a pro-gun rape survivor who challenged Obama on CNN. We're honored to have her with us. Kimberly, thank you so much for waiting through that break. We do appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thanks for keeping me with you.
Well, I'm really honored to be speaking with you, and I just want to review a little bit for listeners that might be just tuning in. Kimberly, you actually experienced a sexual assault. You then followed through and helped police find your attacker. You went through 3 hours of testimony in order to ensure that he was convicted, and you have been publicly speaking about this incident and advocating for victims since that time. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
Yep, and you actually have been quoted in saying that this happened to you for a reason. Maybe it was to help give women the strength to speak up. And you've been quoted as saying, I don't care if you are a stripper or you have been drinking. Rape is rape, and it's not your fault. You didn't ask for this. So what would you like to tell the public about your experiences and what they can do to help women in their community?
You know, that's actually from one of the first articles that was published after sentencing. I learned very quickly, consent is something you give. It cannot be taken from you. There's so many different kinds of sexual assault, and there's so many different kinds of survivors. They're not all going to agree with me on these policies, but we can all agree that this is a heinous crime that needs to be stopped. It's not how we're choosing to defend ourselves. That is after the fact. A lot of people like to pander their votes to us by saying, you know, well, they're women and they're going to care most about, you know, birth control and abortion issues. Well, no, there's a whole lot more to our lives. I mean, we run our households. We run our finances. We keep things together. We get kids where they need to be. We work with other co-parents. I mean, there are so many other issues that are just completely being ignored right now by some of the larger politicians. And I think that what we need to do is bring it back down to a level where we really do all respect each other and the fact that we each have different life experiences. Mine, unfortunately, has a very, very dark beginning, but at the same time, I chose to not remain a victim and transform myself into a survivor. That's why I'm choosing to carry, and that's okay if that's not what somebody else wants, but don't take my right away to do so.
I like what you just said there. Don't take away my right to do so. The Second Amendment is clear that the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. And yet, it seems this president believes that by executive order, he can infringe that right. And obviously, you've stood up against that proposition, and you've tried to use your experience to explain why you feel the way that you do, and you didn't get a proper answer from the president. So what would you like to say to him now?
Well, a lot of people attack, you know, maybe they'll attack me personally for what I asked or call me names. And then on the other side, we have people attacking Obama for his response. I think we need to get away from attacking the person. Look at the issues. If you keep it issue-focused, you're going to hit a lot more people, and a lot more people are going to be willing to listen to you. I think he had not necessarily a pre-canned answer for me, but in general, when that topic comes up, he knows that he has this canned answer. But I also think that he got a little bit jammed up, and that's why he went to my kids. How I safely protect my children and what I choose to carry in my home and my training, he has no idea about. Okay. So to insinuate that they're there, you might not know what you're doing, I think was kind of degrading to me, but not just me, women in general that are choosing this to protect their families. I am asking him specifically about rape and my ability to protect my children from the same thing happening to him. He's talking about my gun jumping out of my closet and shooting my kids or them getting into it. That wasn't my question. And that's okay if he wants to have a different conversation about it, but I walked away from that town hall with more questions than I did answers.
Kimberly, this is Rick back at the studio, and again, I feel the same way that Anna does. You are a terrific and a very brave lady. Anyone who stands up in front of a group has my admiration. Anybody who stands in front of a group and asks a question of the President of the United States, I want to commend you for doing that. And I also want to commend you for the way you handled yourself. But I wanted to ask you about your treatment since that time. How were you treated by other people in that audience? How have you been treated by people who have seen this video or have read about you? How have you been treated?
I've had a very polarizing reaction. In the town hall itself, I know that they wanted a 50-50 representation. I think they had a 50-50 representation with the questions that were asked. Absolutely not with the attendance. There was maybe 3 other people that I identified that were pro-gun that I know of and spoke to there. Everybody else was pro-gun control and really just a cheerleader without the pom-pom.
How do you think that group was picked? And why? How do you think that group is picked, and why were you picked?
You know, I'm not entirely sure how it was picked, but I would assume that there are some very close people to either the White House, the administration, or some of the larger national media outlets that are known to that group, not chosen to be softballs. I will give Anderson Cooper great credit for some of the things that he challenged Obama on that I was not expecting. I thought they did a good job of having both sides represented, at least for the town hall. I don't think that the president necessarily responded the way that we wanted, and then we knew that was going to happen. It was more of a show, but what we were there for was to start these conversations on a national level that, hey, we aren't crazy one side or crazy the other side. I am right in the middle and like more Americans than he probably wants me to be. I am going to identify with a lot more people just because I'm normal. I mean, I'm going to drive a Honda to work, and I'm going to go home and change my kids' diapers and make them dinner and fall into bed and have a normal life. But these are still the things that I'm going to choose. The backlash has been people don't like what I'm saying. And when they don't like what I'm saying and they don't have a valid argument, they're going to attack me. They're going to.
You should do a talk radio show and be active on Facebook.
I had to set up a public page for my Facebook because did you know that Facebook stops counting your friend requests once you get to 999? So I set up this.
Oh wow! No, well, I knew. Well, right now I'm in Facebook jail, by the way. Speaking of Facebook, one of my Facebook friends has a question for you. Okay, you now own you, Kimberly, now own a gun, and you're trained to use them. You claim that you're secure in your home for yourself and your young children. So, what's your complaint?
What's my complaint?
What's your complaint? That's the question.
I want to know, not hope. I want to know that I'm going to be continuing to be able to do that and still be a law-abiding citizen.
Okay.
That's my complaint. I want to know where that hard limit on gun control lies, and we have not gotten a straight answer.
Are you political?
I don't typically say that I am. I would say that I'm conservative-minded, but at the same time...
The reason I asked that question is last week we had another guest on who was a rape survivor. It was a lady who is part of the New Hampshire state legislature. She tried to question Hillary Clinton about the actions of her husband and never really got any answer from her and was kind of ridiculed from Hillary Clinton. And I was wondering if you had any feelings about Bill Clinton and his alleged history as a sexual abuser.
You know, I haven't followed the story close enough to feel like I can provide a specific, educated answer. I can say generally, and because they're politicians, not kings. So generally, when these kinds of accusations are surfacing, they have every single right to be researched, to be investigated thoroughly. I mean, no one is above the law here, and that's how that should work. If you look at statistics again, and I know everybody gets lost in them, but think about this. Rape is the one crime that has the fewest amount of false reports. It's less than 3% across the nation that are false reports. What it takes to report a rape, to go through...
I can't imagine. I absolutely cannot imagine. I cannot imagine what you went through. Honest to God. Kimberly Corbin, you are such a strong such a strong woman. We appreciate you, what you went through, what you are doing now. We appreciate you coming on our show. I appreciate the strength you had to stand up to Barack Obama. I hope, we're Facebook friends now. I hope you stay in contact with me anytime you want a voice. Kimberly Corbin, you're welcome to come here.
Well, thank you very much, and I hope if there are any current sex assault survivors or people who know of others that are struggling to find support, that they reach out. I know that RAIN has a hotline, and that's a national organization. That's 1-800-656-HOPE, and I hope that you can reach out to an organization like that, because nobody deserves to do this in silence. You need support.
Absolutely. Kimberly, any other way that people can keep in touch with you, contact with you?
Yeah, I have a public page now on Facebook. It just says Kimberly Corbin, and it's Corban, and says Survivor. So Kimberly Corbin Survivor, or on Twitter, it's facetious, but it's at NotKimco. So NotKimco.
Kimberly Corbin, we want to thank you once again. You are, as I keep saying, because I mean it from the bottom of my heart, you're one of the strongest ladies I've ever spoken to. Take care and God bless.
Yeah, you guys, thank you so much. Have a good one.
You're welcome. And you're listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Anna and Rick, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network, WNJC 1360 in Philly and around the world on the internet. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with our friend J.D. Gordon about Barack Obama releasing more detainees from Gitmo. We'll be right back.
You've heard Paul Delks playing the music on the Your Music Matters morning show. He is also an experienced mortgage loan officer working for U.S. Mortgage Corporation and assists homeowners navigate the reverse mortgage process. If you are finding yourself asking questions whether or not you set aside enough for retirement, Paul can sit down with you, your family, and your financial advisor and discuss how a reverse mortgage may be a valuable resource for your retirement plan. You will be responsible for paying your taxes and insurance, and the reverse mortgage can help with this and other expenses, such as home health care or other untimely bills. Put Paul's 20-plus years of experience to work for you, as choosing the right option for your situation can be critical. Call Paul at U.S. Mortgage Corporation at 877-213-9977. That's 877-213-9977. Or go to seniormatters.info for more information. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is a licensed mortgage banker in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and an equal housing lender. NMLS number 3901. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is located at 201 Old Country Road, Suite 140, Melville, New York, 11747. This advertisement applies to first lien mortgages. Paul E. Dilks, NMLS is 485904.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard. From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos Radio. It's a little, and Rick Trader is with us on the board. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, CCRS Network and CCRShow.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to LeadingEdgeRadioNetwork.com. 1 p.m., RoarRadio.net. At 9 p.m., HighPlainsDailyNews.com. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. Our next guest is with us, the one and only J.D. Gordon. J.D. Gordon is a former Pentagon spokesman who served under both Secretary Donald Rumsfeld and Secretary Robert Gates. He's a retired Navy commander. And since leaving the Defense Department, Gordon has served as senior fellow and communications policy advisor to numerous think tanks, foundations, and national political figures, including former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin and former presidential candidate Mr. Herman Cain. Gordon, a contributing columnist of Fox News and the Washington Times since 2010, has regularly appeared as a national security and foreign policy commentator on a wide variety of international, national, and local Washington, D.C. television and radio outlets in English and in Spanish languages. J.D. Gordon, once a conservative commando, always a conservative commando. Welcome back to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Hi, Anna. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me on the show, and Happy New Year to you and Rick.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you. Love the title of your article, Obama Cries Over Guns and Then Frees More Terrorists. It couldn't be more true.
Absolutely, yeah. It was on Fox News over the weekend, Fox News Opinion, and it's still there on FoxNews.com, the opinion section. That's because I watched the president give his speech about gun control at the White House, and he shed a tear, and I was thinking, really, how messed up is this? When he's crying over gun control, and then he turns around and frees more terrorists. You know, right at the same time he was crying, he was releasing a couple more guys who were born in Saudi Arabia. One of these guys said that as soon as he gets out, he's going to cut Americans' throats. He got released the same week the president was crying at the White House over gun control. And by the way, the things he was talking about, Anna, with gun control, as you know, they wouldn't have prevented one of those mass shootings. He's just talking about trimming around the edges, talking about increased background checks, etc. So he's crying over something that's not going to make a difference anyway. So that's why I just thought it was so ridiculous that I should write a column about it and say, look, here's a guy crying over gun control and then freeing more terrorists. It makes no sense whatsoever.
Talk to us about this freeing more terrorists. How is it that his spokesperson is Josh Ernst, right? He's saying that these fellas are not, these fellas being released from Gitmo are not going to be a threat to our national security. How can he ensure us of that? Especially if they're going overseas and I certainly don't want them here on U.S. soil. Talk to us about this.
Well, he's not telling the truth, but, there are some people in this world, Anna, that'll just look you straight in the face and tell you a lie. I mean, that's what you get from this White House.
Yeah.
That's what you get. That's what you get, because our intelligence authorities, they don't lie. The U.S. intelligence authorities, the career guys from the CIA, from the DIA, and our intelligence authorities, they don't lie. So they're required by Congress, by law, to give a report every year on the number of ex-Gitmo detainees who have returned to terrorism. It's called the recidivism report. Well, our intelligence authorities have reported that it's about 1 in 3 ex-Gitmo detainees are confirmed or suspected of having returned to terrorism. So 1 in 3, about 30%. But what the Obama White House is now saying is that it's less than 10%. But if you actually peel the onion back and how they could possibly say it's less than 10%, because they're referring to people who left under President Obama and not counting the people who left under President Bush. So it's kind of like a magic trick. It's a sleight of hand, and that's what these guys do constantly from the White House. So they prevaricate, they embellish when they need to, and then when things are not going their way, then they downplay it. So basically, we have never had a White House that has been this dishonest with the American people ever in the history of our country. Maybe some people say President Nixon was not honest either, but President Obama really takes the cake.
Speaking of President Obama, he has a town hall called Guns in America. It's televised live from George Mason University, and he gets the opportunity to speak with a number of people there, one of whom is Taya Kyle, the widow of the Navy SEAL Chris Kyle, who was memorialized and is now famous for the American Sniper movie. Talk to us about your reaction to that exchange.
Well, first, I was very pleased that since CNN had it, televised it live, and Anderson Cooper was the host, I was very pleased to see they even let Taya Kyle in there to even have an exchange with President Obama. So sometimes I do have faith in some of the mainstream media, and even in President Obama, because he did obviously allow that. And so they had a good exchange, and the thing that really struck me is that Taya Kyle and the president, they had a back and forth for, I don't know, it was 6-7 minutes. It's on the web. People could take a look at it. But the president acknowledged that the crime rates and violent crime rates and murder rates have been going down over the years in the United States. The president acknowledged, as Taya brought up, that gun ownership is at an all-time high. So the president acknowledges these truths, but yet he still doesn't really care about the truth. He acknowledges, he knows what the truth is, but he still wants to take guns away from the American people, make it harder for people to legally get guns, increasing the background checks I'm talking about, and increasing a number of ways to make it difficult, adding more red tape. Meanwhile, the president acknowledged that some criminals are always going to get their hands on guns. The president even acknowledges the truth. He knows it, but he doesn't care, because in his mind, his ideology is, we're not responsible enough for guns. So he thinks, just like the people on the left, that they should take our guns, that they should make it so hard for us to get guns. Meanwhile, they know they can't stop the criminals, but they're going to stop law-abiding citizens like you and me. They're going to make it as difficult as possible. That's part of the reason why this administration, frankly, drives me nuts, because they want to punish the American citizens, the average people like us, because we are not responsible enough to even care for guns, according to them, even though the president knows that the murder rate and violent crime rate have been going down, even though he knows gun ownership is at an all-time high. He doesn't care. He just wants to go with his far-left ideology.
While we're on this topic, I'd like to talk about his remarks relative to jihadists and Islam. It seems that he doesn't think there's anything Islamic about jihadists. Now, I understand he's trying to make the distinction that not everyone who practices Islam is a jihadist, or at least a violent terrorist jihadist. But by the same token, I don't think it's possible to say the reverse, that there is nothing Islamic about jihadists. The jihadists are committing their acts of terror in the name of Islam. They are calling out to Allah as they do it. How can the president say something like that?
Well, the president is following this cottage industry of this Islamist lobby. The Saudis have spent over $100 billion in exporting this Wahhabi-type ideology, this very hardcore type of Sunnism since the 1970s. Well, that buys a lot of buildings on universities. It buys a lot of faculty salaries. It buys a lot of think tanks here in Washington and a lot of influence. So the president just repeats that line because that's what the far left thinks. Now, I wrote in my column that if the president thinks that the jihadists aren't Muslims and there's nothing Islamic about it, as I wrote in my column, then why did the Gitmo detainees get 4 halal meals a day? Why did they get imported dates, roasted meat? Why did they get a month-long feast every night for Ramadan? What did the Gitmo guards just have a really weird sense of humor? So that's what I wrote in my column. I said it's ridiculous. Either the president is lying or the Gitmo guards and the cooks down there have a really bizarre way to entertain themselves by feeding these detainees all these halal meals, which is, is what the Muslims have for the equivalent of kosher, halal meals. So it's really ridiculous. The president he just tried to basically put his ideology over on the American people. He knows what the facts are. He doesn't care. He just wants to have his way and basically impose his far-left ideology on America because I believe he thinks America is a place that is not morally fit to lead. He believes, just like they teach in universities, that this is a country of slavery and Jim Crow laws, the decimation of Native Americans, the place that used the A-bomb. That's what he thinks.
The leader of this, yeah. JD, we've got to go to a break. Can you hold on for just 2 minutes while we identify the station?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Listeners, we are speaking with J.D. Gordon, former Pentagon spokesman and retired Navy commander, and we are coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio, and AM/FM 24/7. Those are all .coms. I'm Anna Little, Rick Trader's on the boards, and J.D. Gordon will be right back with us after this break.
I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the Internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Viden, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Prater and Anna Little. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our websites, CCRS Network and CCRShow.com. And mornings at 9 a.m., log on to LeadingEdgeRadioNetwork.com. At 1 p.m., log on to RoarRadio.net. At 9 p.m., log on to HighPlainsDailyNews.com. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any telephone by calling 832-999-1199. We are speaking this segment with J.D. Gordon, former Pentagon spokesman and retired Navy commander. He's joining us today to talk about his article, Obama Cries Over Guns, Then Frees More Terrorists. J.D. Gordon, thank you so much for waiting through the break. We do appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thanks, Anna.
Well, just before the break, you were talking about the far-left ideology of this president and his administration in contrast to the leadership of the House of Representatives and the Senate, which we, the people, changed over during this president's tenure. And I want to now talk about this president's declaration that he is determined to transform America, that American power is the problem, and that anyone challenging us might have a legitimate grievance, and how this might explain his policy, especially with Cuba and Iran and Gitmo, and whether or not you think he's actually going to go forward with executive orders and try to jam this stuff down our throats. Go ahead, J.D., take it away.
Thank you, Anna. Well, he is. I think he's been trying to do that for 7 years, and I just pray that we can survive the next year, frankly. I think he's going to just leave it all on the field. As he says, he's going to do whatever he can to just to really ram his ideology down this country's throat, unfortunately. And we just have to put up with it another year. I mean, certainly the Congress should push back, and the Congress actually has done a good job of pushing back against his moves on gun control, against his moves to close Guantanamo. So, fortunately, we were able to have the Congress change via the ballot box, of course, with the Senate and the House. So that's good. But the president's going to do whatever he can with the executive order to force his way on the country. But, the president didn't just fall out of the sky. I mean, he's definitely a product of our university system, which has been taken over by the international left. I mean, the Marxists rule the day there. This is the flower power generation of the 1960s that are now in charge. And so that's why the president has this ideology. He thinks we're the problem. And if you look at university campuses these days, it's almost like madness, Anna. This last year, with what happened at University of Missouri, with all those protests that were, based on things that were, for the most part, unfounded. Fenced in, the students took over the dean's office. Look, they wanted Woodrow Wilson's name removed off of everything because they said he was racist. I mean, it's just, I wrote in a previous column that some of these professors and people that run the universities, they're basically teaching pyromania, burn down the country, essentially. Then they're surprised when they get pyromaniacs, right? So it's this far-left mentality that we're the problem. Well, Barack Obama has that ideology. So we just have to wait them out, and hopefully we can survive, and hopefully the Congress can stay strong. We got to keep the Congress accountable to push back against them so we can keep a country that I believe has been a force for good. Sure, we're not perfect, but over our history, I think we've been a force for good. Otherwise, Nazism would still run Europe. The Soviet Union would still be in existence. I think America has been a force for good.
Well, and I believe so, too, and I think that's why everybody keeps trying to come here and looks for American aid. So I just wanted to I'm going to let Rick jump in because he's got some questions for you. But before I do that, I just want to point out that you've also highlighted in your article that Barack Obama has exhibited weakness toward some world leaders like Russia, China, Syria, and North Korea. And I submit to you, J.D. Gordon, and to our listeners, that is why the world is on fire. That weakness that he has shown, and under the guise of identifying America as the problem, and that these people who challenge us have some kind of legitimate grievance, that has translated into this weakness, which has allowed this world to burn on fire the way it is, and for ISIS to grow as it has. I hope that it doesn't result in the destruction of life as we know it. I mean, it's really pretty catastrophic. Rick, why don't you jump in?
It is.
Yeah, here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, we are talking with our friend J.D. Gordon, former Defense Department spokesman. And J.D., what do you see is the future of our United States owning Gitmo? Do you think Barack Obama, before the end of his presidency, is going to just give that territory back to Cuba?
I believe he's going to try everything in his power to do it. That's what I've been writing about in my columns and TV commentary as well. And one of the reasons I believe he's trying to do that is because if you travel to Latin America, so many people down there, especially on the left, they say, well, America's the great empire. And you ask them, well, why is it the empire? You know, I spent 7 years in Latin America working and traveling down there in my military jobs. And they'll tell you that, well, number one, Guantanamo, you have the base and it belongs to the Cuban government. And you say, whoa, that's a dictatorship. It doesn't matter, they say. America's still the empire because you have a piece of a country that they don't cast the checks for the lease you have. It's an occupation because the Castro brothers call it an occupation. I believe President Obama thinks the same exact way. I think he wants to empty that facility of the detainees. That's why he's so obsessed to empty it, because he wants to free them. I believe he thinks that the Gitmo detainees have a legitimate grievance, because anybody challenging the U.S. power has a legitimate grievance, according to the people with that product ideology. So I believe he's desperate to empty the facility, because he can't give back Gitmo to the Cubans if the detainees are still there. That's why he has to get them out of there. But, you know, the president wants to visit Cuba this year, too. All for very full, nothing in return. He wants to visit the Castro brothers.
That probably is when it will happen, J.D. He will want to go there. He'll want to make the big splash. He'll want to look like the Jimmy Carter of the 21st century, just like Jimmy Carter gave Panama the canal. Here's Barack Obama going down there, making a big show to give them Guantanamo. Can he do it? Does he have the power to do it, J.D.? Or does it have to be an act of Congress?
No, he has the power to do it. The only thing required to give Guantanamo back, and I know I was stationed at Guantanamo in the early 90s, and I was there 30 times in my Pentagon spokesman job. The only thing required to give Guantanamo Naval Base back to the Cubans is for both heads of state to sign it over.
Wow.
Just Barack Obama and Raul Castro. That's all that's needed. And, you know, even Barack Obama, it was just within the last year, he got a legal opinion from his own staff that tell him the same thing. So Barack Obama is studying it. He knows he can do it. The Congress can't stop him. The Congress can stop him from bringing detainees to the United States, which they've already done. It's against the law. If Obama brings detainees into the United States, he will be breaking the law. So Congress has the authority there. But if the detainees are gone, then Obama has the authority to give the Gitmo Naval Base back to the Cubans. He absolutely does.
And there's nothing that Congress can do to stop him.
Well, they could pass a law now, which I've been telling them to do. I talk to Congress all the time, and I say, look, when are you guys going to have hearings to pass a law to change this current situation, where the current situation is the lease agreement that we have with the Cubans? We've had it since 1903. That lease agreement should be changed in Congress to forbid the president from giving it back to the Cubans. But they haven't taken that up. I mean, they know, a lot of them know about it.
Is there enough in Congress that wants us to keep Guantanamo that can override a presidential veto?
Well, I think that's the issue right there. A lot of members of Congress know that he wants to give the base back, especially the South Florida delegation. They know it. But I don't think that they think that they could get enough votes to pass where they could make sure they could override the veto. And they're very busy with tons of other things too. But they're wise to him. They know what he's trying to do, but they just think that it's going to be sufficient. I believe that they think it's going to be sufficient just to bar the detainees from entering the United States, because it would be breaking the law if Obama just took a plane full of detainees and brought them here. He would be breaking the law. Will he?
But, you know,
I think he's broken the law before, so what's stopping him?
JD, he can release them to a foreign country like he's done?
Well, he's been doing that. Right now, there are about 100 detainees there right now. About 50 of them are held in indefinite detention status, which means we didn't have battlefield detectives chasing them in Afghanistan or Pakistan, so we don't have evidence to convict them in court. So if he closed Guantanamo and other countries didn't take the roughly 100 detainees, about half of them would come to the United States. Well, if all of them came to the United States, that's 100. Half of them would be released by judges, because under this, under the law we have, you don't have indefinite detention. That's not according to the U.S. laws.
Hey,
so
JD,
I just released them.
JD, I'm sorry to cut you, but we are dead out of time. We actually did want to run a little bit long. But before we go, tell our audience how they can follow your work.
Thank you very much, Rick. Well, my website is Protect America Today. That's www.protectamericatoday.com. And they can see my columns this weekend and then today on FoxNews.com. And also I had one published today in the Daily Caller about another local angle with the Poconos and Hillary Clinton taking $1 million from an Islamist cult based in the Poconos. But that's a story for another day.
J.D. Gordon, again, thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks, Rick. Take care. God bless.
And I want to thank you for sitting in today as my co-host. You'll be sitting in tomorrow with Sharon Angle. I also want to thank our other guests, but for right now, we're out of time. We got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow on the radio.